This month, as Mykal has alluded, the theme is seeing with wholeness. And I want to alter that a little bit and encourage us to look with wholeness. To a great extent, seeing is just something that seems to happen. Looking is when we intentionally focused our seeing. When Mykal had that Mandelbaum fractals and seeing their unfolding, to look at it is to engage our active attention. The global heart vision is about engaging consciously. So looking consciously. Today I'd like us to think about 3 areas for seeing and looking for our wholeness. I want us to be considering our physical wholeness, the body. I'd like us to be considering our emotional wellness. And I'm going to allude and link that to the spiritual center's idea of the soul. And then there's finally that notion of the mind and the wholeness of mind. Earnest Holmes proposed, he drew a symbol, and he described that this symbol could contain all that is. And the lovely thing again about that fractal geometry is that within that design, as you go into it, it repeats. And what you saw at one place, you see in another place. But the colors that were here are completely different here. And yet, it's all the same. That notion that Earnest Holmes described, that circle, a Euclidean figure, when this character Mandelbaum came out with fractal geometry, the mathematicians made fun of him. They said this will never have any bearing. What's been fascinating is that in fact, it's had all kinds of bearing in terms of such things as weather prediction, in terms of where we're looking at how you determine the origin of a tumor. Because the blood vessels that go to supply a tumor are structured very differently than the blood vessels that naturally supply the body. This fractal geometry has helped explain some of what's happening in the rainforests. For instance, did you know that when they looked at a tree, simply a tree in the rainforest, and they measured the trunk, and they measured the distance to the branches, and they measured the branches to the branches, to the branches to the daughter branches, all the way out to the leaves, this pattern is replicated in the whole forest. When they went through that forest, it's kind of reminiscent of the Jim Cameron movie, Avatar. Yeah, that everything is connected.
Yeah.
The idea that wholeness, this idea that this circle contains all, and that everything is connected. So to start with the body, how many of us, I bet, had a mother who held us and checked us out? You know, look to see, are there the right number of fingers? Are there the right number of toes? It's pretty much what parents automatically do when they look at the baby. They look it all over. They check it all out. Does it have all the parts it's supposed to have? When we get up in the morning, don't we kind of do the same thing? We may not be counting our toes because we're pretty sure about their identity and we're pretty sure about their constancy. But we check out, you know, is my hair in the right place? How about if I'm doing makeup, did I get it on right? If I'm shaving, did I shave evenly? Did I miss any spots? If I'm growing a beard, am I keeping it even? What am I doing? We check ourselves out. We look to see what we look like. At least I'm assuming most people don't just go into the closet and randomly say, I'm going to wear this, and I'm going to wear this. We look, we decide, we choose. We're very conscientious about choosing, about being in the world. The invitation with that, the invitation with being physically bound, physically formed, is looking for that wholeness throughout the day. We want to present ourselves as whole. What happens if we look in the world and see that in others? See how others have put themselves together. How hard would it be to simply say, I like what you put together. I like your outfit. I like how you found the color in the blouse and you matched it with the skirt. I like how you were thoughtful about the shoes that you selected. How hard is it to say, I really like how you got those glasses to capture the shape of your face. I really like how you thought about the color of your clothing and your skin tone. I mean, I was very deliberate. I picked this shirt because it had some fractal images on it, or things that could be taken as fractal images. This was a shirt that was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and it was in the John McCartney and John Lennon and Paul McCartney collection. See, you were able to get me to the right wholeness about what this was. That if you look back, you'll see that the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of that fractal imaging. That notion of the fractals and its expression in visual images is something that was captured in the zeitgeist of that time. Madeleine L'Engle was an author, and she used that notion of fractals in many of the stories that she told. She told a story about Wrinkle in Time, that you could move through time, and in that gap from the one place to the other, you could go effortlessly. You could go from one place to another. And in the story, there was a place where time had been held up because there was a lack of freedom. And it was referred to as the it. And the it really wanted things to be Euclidean. It really wanted things to be all alike. Complete uniformity. And the story was about breaking out and being independent. So as much as we might like trying to match everything, there's also a part of us which really likes to be a little bit different. Stephanie has, as a designer, has very intentionally set into new directions with design to give people that experience. She got into her apartment complex, or where she's living, by virtue of her artistry. Each one of us have the opportunity to be artists, whether we're aware of that or not. And I know that this has been discussed by Reverend Pamela, and I think it's useful to bring it out of the closet every once in a while as a reminder. Because that sense of physical wholeness and how we move through the world is something that we carry with us. Has anyone ever felt not whole? Ever. Ever. I see there are some nods going on here. So when we have that sensation, it calls us to do something. Our physical lives frequently call us into action. So that notion that there is a break in wholeness is a call to restoring wholeness. To a great extent, I believe that that's what's so passionate about this election. One group of people thinks that there's going to be wholeness that happens here, and one group of people think that there's wholeness that's going to happen here. But I think ultimately it's that both groups are looking for wholeness. There is one group that is really caught up in the notion of safety and security and well-being. There's another group that's really caught up with the notion of givingness and working together and a generativity that happens through that coming together. What seems to have happened is that these have become peaked against each other. And it's very hard for us when we run into someone who's not seeing the things that we're seeing. It's very hard to have the spaciousness and not to have a little bubble over our head and say, what? What? How can you possibly think that? Where's your mind? So that's where I want to move into the notion of emotional wholeness. And for emotional wholeness, I'm going to actually go back to something that I've talked about before, but I think it's really important that our brains are designed to give us emotional wholeness. We can see what our brain looks like simply by creating a fist where we put the thumb inside. So I invite us all to create a model of our brain. So we've got our thumb on our palm. We wrap our fingers in front of it. Now we've got our brain. Now you say, how is that a brain? Well, this part here is called the frontal cortex. And this is the part that has emerged more recently. This is the part that does all of the reasoning, all of the planning, all of the organization. When we see that little children just rush out into the street, part of it is that their frontal cortex is not altogether formed. In fact, the frontal cortex does not form really until the age of 25. Wow. So we know that teenagers can do some wild and crazy and wacky things. It's just that that frontal cortex is still all figuring out what to do. It's not even gonna land down yet. This section, this is the amygdala, and the amygdala is our emotional guardian. This is the one that's checking things out. How are things going? And it is taking care of our brainstem, the oldest part of our brain. You've heard of the reptilian brain? It's back here. This is what keeps us alive. And that reptilian brain knows several different activities. It knows flight. It knows fight. It knows freeze. I think there's another one that they've recently come up with, but fight, fright, and freeze are the ones that we're most common with. One of the things that happens with the brain is we have this amazing thing called mirror neurons. So when someone comes at us with a certain emotional frame, our brain just automatically mirrors that. So when someone's yelling at us, it's very difficult to stay calm because they're coming with a certain level of energy. And this guy is going to be saying, it's like that where is Thumpkin, where is Thumpkin, here I am. It's that like mirroring thing that was done when I was a little kid and my mom was teaching me what my fingers were. So Thumpkin would come out, and then Thumpkin would come out, and then they'd run away, and then where's the pointer? Where's pointer? Here I am, here I am. How are you today, sir? Very well, I thank you. Run that way. So we've got this mirror activity that is happening. We are designed so that when someone comes up to us in a complete state of rage, it typically triggers rage. When someone comes up to us in a state of fear, it's very easy to get fearful. I would say, why do you think the movies are such great and emotionally evocative things? Because they have spent a lot of money creating a scene that is very easy to draw us in. Knowing about this mirror neuron stuff, this is what I want us to be more thoughtful about. Because it's very easy on autopilot just to be taking care of ourselves, and that's by responding emotionally. We've often described here a thought plus a feeling leads to an outcome. The difficulty is sometimes we can't even get to our thoughts because the feeling is so driven. The feeling has us so caught up. When I have done therapy with couples, I could have them come to me and say, well, what did you fight about this week? I don't really know. What was it about? We fought on Thursday, but I don't really know what it's about. The reason for that is that our ideas and memories are linked to our emotions. So I don't know, I'm just going to invite you to consider if there's ever been a time that you've argued with someone. And maybe I'm the only one that's ever argued with someone. Maybe all of you are far more heightened consciousness and you don't do this. But it can become very difficult to figure out what it was that I was arguing about. Why was I so out of control? But then it happens again. And it's like I'm sucked right back down into that hole. It's also a little bit like going back home. You know, we've developed all of these skills and we can be about a grown-up in the world, and we go back home to mom and dad, and suddenly we are back to the 12-year-old that is cowering because maybe we'll be caught. Or maybe they'll know something about us that we don't really want to know. Or whatever. There is that mirroring. There is that falling back. So what I'm inviting us with respect to wholeness is to just be conscious of that. I would say that this election is a prime opportunity for consciousness. Because I would say that I don't think there are many occasions in recent history where as much emotional drama is being foisted upon the American public as this round. And it's very easy to get caught up in that drama. It's very easy to join the drum banging, the bum dragging, I was going to say. The bum dragging. It's very, very easy to get caught up in that. The notion of wholeness is to recognize, oh, I have these mirror neurons in me, and they're just naturally responding to this. Do I want to choose to do this? What, is that what's happening? Yes, that is what's happening. We can pause, and we can decide, do I want to keep going forward? Am I going to keep watching this? Am I going to keep being pulled in? You know, it's a little bit like those accidents that are happening, and you just sheer curiosity, you just, you know, it's that tragedy that you just almost have to see. You know, it's how many times there's a traffic jam because there's this one car that's pulled off to the side of the road. And it's got its trunk up, and it's just the tank is overheating. But everybody has to slow down and see it. And we get to make the choice, am I going to watch too? Am I going to be another one of the rubberneckers in this group? Or will I just go on past? We're at liberty to decide. And again, I just give us that hand metaphor to say, where am I? Is my mind in charge? Is my reasoning ability, is my planning ability, is my organizational ability in charge here? Or have I just let it go? One teacher who's introduced me to this notion is the idea of flipping my lid. Well, I let myself flip my lid here. Now, sometimes we may want to flip our lid. Sometimes we may find that it's the only way to get someone's attention. We may have tried everything else, and it feels that that's the only way left. I'm not telling you this as a way to critique, but simply as a way to invite discovery. If I flip my lid, do we respond well when they flip their lid back at us? It really is a little bit like that sound that you would hear on the Charlie Brown. That brings us then to the capacity for mental wholeness, for mindfulness. Charlie described it that when we were looking at the pictures, mindfulness is about being right where we are. The thing about those images is they are very engaging. They do draw us to this moment. Mindfulness is about being right where we are. What are the things that we can do to enhance our mindfulness? Well, we'll send out that YouTube. And if that's something that creates a sense of mindfulness, the nice thing about it is that it's a little bit different than the classic meditation where I'm sitting and I'm just being still. And I'm letting all of those things pass through my mind, and I'm noticing that they're passing through my mind, and I'm not critiquing myself for they're passing through my mind. For some people, that's a form of meditation that works very well. Not everybody. For some people, meditation is that process of just walking. And that mindfulness of this step and this step. Meditation can be mindfully eating. Taking notice. This bite, that delicious food that Tayan brought today. What are the flavors in this bite? What are the ingredients? Where did they come from? How did they get made? This is now here with me now. How do I enjoy this right now? How do I give thanks for this right now? So that invitation to mindfulness, to right now, is just being present to what's going on right now. Paying attention when we drift away. Paying attention when we have a hard time staying in a conversation. Are we getting pulled away because there's emotional distraction? Are we getting pulled away because I've lost interest and the person that's talking to me is no longer the center of my attention? My attention has wandered off to what lunch at Zippy's would be like. Or will I catch that bus? Will the bus be there on time? If the bus isn't there on time, what will I do instead? You know, we can all fall into those trains. It's a little bit like that image of the wholeness. You keep going in and it keeps being there. One of the things that I did is I brought some copies of fractals just as a way to invite people to see. So I'll hand them out and let you all.
Cool. There you go.
The notion of a fractal is also an invitation to mindfulness. Instead of it being a straight line, it's all about many, many more lines than are straight. I watched a show from Nova, and they described that when you measure a coastline using a mile as the measure, you get one measurement. But when you take it down from a mile to a yard, and you add the yard up, it's a different measurement. When you add it by foot, it's a different measurement for the coastline. When you do it by inch, it's a different measurement. It's the same as that story where the professor brought in a big dish, and he brought in some big rocks. And he said, how many rocks can I get in here? And they're like, and he would put the rocks in. Is it full? Yeah, it's full. Then he poured in some marbles, and he shook it, and the marbles made their way in. Is it full? Oh, yes, yes. And then he poured in some sand, and then the sand spread through it. Is it full? Oh, yes, yes. And then he poured in water. Each time, the group of people said, yes, it's full. But each time, with each new iteration, there was more and more that could be added. That's really what mindfulness is about. We may think we're mindful. At any given point in time, we may be as mindful as we have the capacity for mindfulness. The invitation is to be kind and gentle to ourselves, that sometimes our mindfulness is measured in a mile. Sometimes our mindfulness is measured in a yardstick, or measured in a foot, or measured in an inch, or measured in a centimeter. Sometimes our mindfulness is that boulder, or it's that rock, or it's that marble, or it's that sand, or it's that water. Our mindfulness can change continually. The invitation is just to look at it and to be aware of it. The invitation is that there is a wholeness that is behind all that is. One of the most exciting things that Earnest Holmes described, that I still get shivers when I think about he talked about a divine pattern. And that's the thing that's happening with these fractals. It's this pattern. But you can see from the images that happen, it's a constantly changing pattern. It's not just blip, 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 blip. It keeps changing, and yet it becomes itself again and again and again. Each of us, what Earnest Holmes proposed, each of us are places of that divine pattern. We all look different, we all think different, we all feel differently, but we're all places through which that divine pattern can be operating. So, 3 possible homeworks. Possible. Look at our own bodies and look at the bodies of other people around us. And just revel in that wholeness. Even if we're thinking, God, I don't like this hitch in my get-along.
Yeah.
We are paying attention to that hitch. We have a hitch. We have a get-along. We have something. We have a capacity. Put our attention on the wholeness of that physical capacity rather than on what's missing. Look at what there is. If we catch ourselves paying attention to what's not, just say, am I going to keep focusing on what isn't or focus on what is? And do I celebrate what is? Do I celebrate? Gosh darn it! I was able to run 10 miles an hour last week, and this week it was 11 miles an hour. Sad.
Yeah.
Enjoy what is. Celebrate what is. That's the body. The emotions, just pay attention. Just pay attention. Have we flipped our lids? Are we responding with that flipped lid so that we aren't bringing our reason to bear? We aren't bringing all of our very best to any situation. Are we just bringing this raw emotion? Again, the message is not that raw emotion is bad. It's very good. It's very powerful. It fuels us. It excites us. It gives us vitality and life. Are we using it in the way that we want to? Or are we simply in response to someone else's emotion? I know that I definitely have been at times during this election season.
No.
Just pay attention. Where are my emotions? Is this the place of wholeness that I want to root myself in? There are stories of these great characters. Saint Mother Teresa, I can say that now. Kuan Yin, Jesus, the Buddha, Moses. These were not always emotionally steady. They did not just operate like a line. Jesus went to the temple when they were selling stuff in the temple, and he had a temper tantrum. I love that about Jesus. Here he is. He's attributed with so many things, and he's having a temper tantrum. You're doing this in my Father's house. What are you thinking? He didn't just say, I really think this is inappropriate. Let's stop this and do another thing. I mean, there were people at a rally this week, and a certain president was saying, be nice to that person. You might not agree with him, but show him some respect. He was upholding someone. He was using his emotional energy to uphold someone. You're booing. Stop booing at him. He was listening, and he was trying to bring around a respect. We all have that capacity. We all have that ability. You all know about Moses. Moses was like, I can't do it. My brother's much better at speaking. Don't make me do it. But the story goes that Yahweh, that burning bush, said, go. The burning bush was not convinced by the temper tantrum. It wasn't convinced by the, I can't. Lots of times we feel we can't. Listen to the burning bush inside. Push through the can't. And finally, in terms of that mindfulness, that wholeness of mind, that wholeness of spirit, just like those images showed, each of us are a part of the wholeness that is divine life. Divine life is spread through all that is. It didn't make a swath through and say, oh, I'm only going to give you a third, but you're going to get 2/3, and this pattern is going to be giving you a full one. That's not how divine life works. Divine life infuses all of creation with all that it is. If we look through that lens, if we envision the world as the fullness of creation, don't different things become available to us? Again, I remember some years ago I was being persuaded to take a class. And the image was that we carry around our baggage a little bit like learning to put on defenses. So as I'm walking around like this, and then I pick up another defense, I suddenly become far less capable of doing other things.
Weighs you down.
Now I can continue to carry on the defenses, and I can continue to take more. I could probably wrap my chair around, I could probably wrap a chair around the leg and wrap another chair around the other leg, but I'm not as free. I'm not as well versed to move easily. Each of us has the wherewithal. We all have the mind. An infinite mind is available to us. Just pay attention and let that be. And so it is.
So it is.